Ronald Reagan wasn't just a movie star or the 40th President of the United States, he was also a father of 5. But what happened to the children who grew up in the shadow of one of America's most iconic figures? In this video, we're diving deep into the lives of Maureen, Michael, Christine, Patty, and Ron Reagan. From fame and politics to heartbreak and legacy, this is the real story of what happened to Ronald Reagan's kids. And believe me, it's not what you think. Number 5. Maureen Reagan. Born in 1941 to Ronald and Jane Wyman, Maureen Reagan came into the world when Ronald was still just the charming Hollywood actor. From a young age, she showed signs of independence, ambition, and a strong political drive. Although she tried her hand at acting, even appearing alongside Elvis Presley in the 1964 film Kissin' Cousins, Maureen quickly realized that politics, not Hollywood, was where her heart belonged. She broke new ground as the first presidential child elected co-chair of the Republican National Committee. Despite her strong conservative roots, Maureen wasn't afraid to speak her mind, even if it clashed with her father's. She held firm pro-choice beliefs and wasn't shy about publicly expressing them, highlighting the tension that can exist even in the most high-profile families. Maureen made several attempts at elected office, including a bid for the U.S. Senate in 1982 and a congressional run in 1992. Though she didn't win, she left a lasting impression as a serious political player. After her father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 1994, Maureen became one of the most prominent voices advocating for awareness and research. She joined the board of the Alzheimer's Association and used her platform to educate the public about the disease. Her personal life was equally eventful. She was married 3 times and eventually settled down with Dennis Revel, with whom she adopted a daughter from Uganda named Margaret Rita Mirembe Revel. In 1996, Maureen was diagnosed with melanoma, a battle she fought bravely until her death in 2001 at the age of 60. Her memoir, First Father, First Daughter, remains a touching tribute to her life and her complex relationship with her famous dad. Number 4. Michael Reagan. Michael Reagan, born in 1945 and adopted shortly after birth by Ronald and Jane Wyman, grew up with a different lens on the Reagan family. His early years were turbulent, bouncing between schools and struggling with a sense of belonging. He was expelled from Loyola High School, eventually graduating from a boarding school in Arizona and briefly attending 2 colleges without earning a degree. His early career was a patchwork of sales jobs and acting gigs, including small roles on television shows like Falcon Crest, which starred his adoptive mother. But it wasn't until he found his voice in talk radio that Michael began to carve out a space of his own. Hosting The Michael Reagan Show for nearly 2 decades, he built a platform to share his political commentary and personal beliefs. Michael wrote candidly about his struggles and triumphs in his autobiography, On the Outside Looking In. The title alone captures the core of his story, feeling somewhat removed from the glamorous Reagan narrative while still being deeply shaped by it. He was married twice, first to Pamela Gail Putnam in a short-lived union, and then to Colleen Stearns, with whom he has 2 children. Today, Michael continues to speak publicly, particularly on adoption and conservative values. As chairman of the Reagan Legacy Foundation, he works to preserve his father's memory and accomplishments, even as he acknowledges the complexities of growing up Reagan. Number 3. Christine Reagan. Christine Reagan's story is the briefest yet among the Reagan children, and perhaps the most heartbreaking. She was born prematurely on June 26, 1947, to Ronald Reagan and Jane Wyman, and died the same day. Her death devastated both parents, especially Ronald, who seldom spoke publicly about her. Number 2. Patty Davis. Patricia Ann Reagan, better known as Patty Davis, was born in 1952 and quickly stood out as the family's black sheep. In an effort to carve out her own identity, she dropped the Reagan surname in favor of her mother's maiden name. Patty has always walked a different path, challenging the norms of her conservative family with her liberal views and outspoken nature. After studying creative writing and drama, Patty entered the world of acting. She landed parts in shows like Chips, Fantasy Island, and The Love Boat. But it was through writing that she found her most authentic voice. Her novels and autobiographies were deeply personal and at times controversial. In The Way I See It, she opened up about her fraught relationship with Nancy Reagan and her differing political views from her father. Patty became known for her activism, particularly against nuclear weapons and in favor of abortion rights. She was a regular in protests and wasn't afraid to speak her truth, even when it drew criticism from her own family. Her personal life included a high-profile relationship with Eagles guitarist Bernie Leadon, with whom she co-wrote the song I Wish You Peace, and a marriage to yoga instructor Paul Grilly, which ended in divorce. Over the years, Patty remained a compassionate observer of her father's decline due to Alzheimer's, chronicling the experience in her 2004 memoir, The Long Goodbye. In 2024, she released Dear Mom and Dad, a letter about family, memory, and the America we once knew, further solidifying her reputation as a bold and reflective voice in the Reagan family. Number 1. Ron Reagan. Ronald Prescott. Reagan, born in 1958, is perhaps the most surprising member of the Reagan clan. From an early age, Ron went against the grain, literally trading the political spotlight for stage lights as a ballet dancer. After leaving Yale University during his freshman year, he joined the Joffrey Ballet Company, an unconventional path for a president's son. Ron later transitioned into media, taking on roles as a TV and radio host. He helmed The Ron Reagan Show and later co-hosted political programming on MSNBC. His writing, particularly My Father at 100, offered a heartfelt and nuanced view of Ronald Reagan as both a leader and a dad. But Ron's political views stood in stark contrast to his father's conservative image. An unabashed liberal and atheist, he became a vocal critic of the Republican Party. His outspoken support for Democratic candidates and causes, including Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders, made headlines. He also appeared in commercials for the Freedom from Religion Foundation, proclaiming he was not afraid of burning in hell. Ron married clinical psychologist Doria Palmieri in 1980. After her death in 2014, he eventually remarried in 2018 to Federica Bassagni. He currently lives in Seattle and continues to speak publicly on politics, religion, and the evolving nature of American values. Conclusion: Ronald Reagan's children didn't walk the same path, but they each carried a piece of his legacy. Maureen, the driven political voice. Michael, the radio host and adopted son who found peace. Patty, the writer and caregiver who sought truth in her family's imperfections. Ron, the rebel who never stopped loving his parents, even as he challenged their worldview. And Christine, whose brief life remains a quiet part of Reagan history. In the end, their stories show us that even the children of presidents are just